Remember that the telencephalon is the phylogenetically newest part of the brain, followed by the diencephalon and the mesencephalon. Now we're going to be talking about the two phylogenetically oldest regions of the brain. These are the metencephalon and the myelencephalon, and both are considered the hind brain, or phylogenetically the rhombencephalon. The metencephalon includes two main regions, the pons and the cerebellum. The cerebellum is really important in balance and coordination. Your ability to hit a ball, stand upright, all of those things are regulated by your cerebellum. Cats have a very highly developed cerebellum. It's large relative to the total size of their brain, and that makes sense because cats are really good at balancing and coordinating their movements. The pons is on the more ventral side of the metencephalon, and the pons has a couple of important regions. The region that we're going to talk the most about is the reticular formation. Now, the reticular formation is a series of nuclei that extends kind of throughout the brainstem. At the level of the pons, it's called the pontine reticular formation, and it's really important in sleep-wake. In fact, your ability to be awake depends on your reticular formation. There are also a couple of neurotransmitter nuclei that live in the pons that also play a role in sleep-wake. For example, in the dorsolateral pons, this DL stands for dorsolateral. This region of the brain has the cells that express a lot of acetylcholine. So the cell bodies for acetylcholine live in the dorsolateral pons. From the dorsolateral pons, they send axons up into the diencephalon to the thalamus. And the acetylcholine neurons in this pathway are very important in sleep-wake. One of the things we didn't really talk about in the telencephalon is that acetylcholine does play an important role in the telencephalon as well. There are a couple of nuclei in the basal forebrain. And those project to the hippocampus and other regions of the cortex. The acetylcholine in the telencephalon, in addition to being important in sleep-wake, is also very important in learning and memory. And this is one of the pathways that's degenerated in Alzheimer's disease. Besides acetylcholine, the pons also has the nucleus that expresses a lot of noradrenergic cells, that is, cells that produce norepinephrine. And that brain region is called the locus coeruleus. And it's very near the dorsolateral pons. Just draw it over here. The locus coeruleus, we say that it has noradrenergic cell bodies. These are the cells that produce norepinephrine. This is simply a matter of terminology. Adrenaline is epinephrine, noradrenaline is noradrenaline or norepinephrine. And presumably it's easier to say noradrenergic than norepinephrinergic, but it's the same thing. So the noradrenergic cells, these are the cells that produce norepinephrine. These cell bodies, there's maybe a couple of thousand cells in the locus coeruleus. but they project to pretty much the whole rest of the brain, to all 5 developmental divisions. This means that even though there are a relatively small number of cells producing norepinephrine, norepinephrine can still have a big impact on the brain and behavior. Norepinephrine is known to also be important in sleep-wake, which makes sense since it's located in the same part of the brain, the pontine reticular formation, that's important in sleep-wake. But it also plays a role in mood, potentially aggression or anxiety, and can really have a role in basically all of our brain functions because it can connect to all of these other brain regions. The phylogenetically oldest part of the brain is the myelencephalon, and it's located down here. It has one main principal structure, and that is the medulla oblongata. This brain region is very important in vital functions. This should make sense to you knowing that this is the phylogenetically oldest region of the brain, because even if you don't have any higher level conscious processing, you still need to be able to regulate breathing, heart rate, swallowing, all of these functions that keep you alive. Your brain helps to control, and the brain region that's most directly responsible for that is the medulla oblongata. If you had damage to your medulla oblongata, you might lose the ability to swallow or breathe or have a heartbeat, and you are at risk of dying from that, of course. In addition to the medulla oblongata, this reticular formation does extend through the metencephalon and the myelencephalon. And another brain region that is encompassed in the metencephalon and the myelencephalon are the raphe nuclei. So the raphe nuclei can be found along the metencephalon and myelencephalon, and actually even a little bit into the mesencephalon. These cell bodies contain serotonin. Like the cell bodies for norepinephrine, there are a few thousand cell bodies for serotonin. However, they project to the entire rest of the brain. Up at the level of the diencephalon, they project to the hypothalamus, where they play a role in feeding behavior. Serotonergic neurons also project to the cortex. Serotonin projections to the prefrontal cortex is thought to be really important in aggression and risk-taking behavior. Remember that impulse control happens at the level of the prefrontal cortex, and in the absence of serotonergic activity in that region, animals and people might have less impulse control. Because serotonin has all of these projections to all of the divisions of the brain, it, like norepinephrine, can have a role in all of these different functions. It's important in mood, we already said feeding behavior, sexual behavior as well, and other executive functions besides impulse control. So even with a relatively small number of serotonin cell bodies, serotonin can still have a big impact on the whole central nervous system.